Thanks again for being here today. It's terrific to see you all here. It's terrific to be finally in a space where we're gathering in person again. And yes, thank you. I'm delighted to have you here. I'm Chip Hunter, the Dean of the Carson College. A couple of things to remember about the Carson College. Our newly reinvented undergraduate business program is the best undergraduate business program in the Pacific Northwest. We do more undergraduate business degrees than any other university, and our market research tells us we are the most likely place for students who want a business degree to apply, and we are also rated most highly by that group with respect to quality of programs. So we are number one in the Northwest with our programs across our campuses for our undergraduates. Our online programs are also terrific, best in the Northwest again. Top 10 nationally for our undergrad online business program, top 20 for our MBA program, which has a lot bigger and more competitive space. So both those programs are terrific. As part of Washington State University across our campuses, we're doing a lot of great things in the college. Among those things we do are making sure that the research and insight that our faculty and our staff generate are communicated out to the state of Washington and beyond. And that's why events like the Power Breakfast are important. So I'm really happy to see you here. It's great to be here. I just have a few introductions I'd like to do, and then I'll move into the program. I want to thank our very special guests, our panelists, Alice Harden from Northwest Farm Credit Services. She's the Vice President of Human Resources there. Wade Larson, who's the Chief Human Resource Officer of Wagstaff Incorporated. And Stacy Taylor, who's the Chief Human Resources Officer at Providence. Thank you all for being here and agreeing to join our program there at the head table here. Our program will be moderated by Ron Moser. I'll say a little bit more about Ron in a minute. He's an associate professor in our Department of Management, Information Systems, and Entrepreneurship in the college. I want to give a special welcome out to our MBA students in attendance today. As I mentioned, our undergraduate programs are more commonly live and in person, and we were glad when COVID brought us back together. Our MBA students are quite comfortable working remotely, as our MBA programs are entirely online. But when we do get a chance to gather with them, it's great to have them here. So special welcome to those of you who are in our MBA program. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors, our Crimson sponsors, Alaska Airlines. And here at tables in the front, we've got the sponsors from Cougs First and Travelers Insurance. Thank you very much, Matt, Tony, and others for making that happen. Also want to acknowledge a busy week for members of our National Board of Advisors. We are here today in Spokane with the Power Breakfast and Cougs First. We will be then gathering at our Vancouver campus for our semi-annual meeting on Friday. So a little bit of jumping across the state this week for our National Board. So members of the National Board, any of you who are here, if you want to give a wave, I really appreciate what you do. Thank you. Our discussion today will be moderated by, as I mentioned, Professor Ron Moser of the Carson College. Ron teaches across our programs. He teaches management, leadership, and human resources. His outstanding teaching, support of students, involvement with our chapter of the Society for Human Resource Management has made Ron very popular as well as in demand with the college and with our students, and his work has been recognized. For example, our student government honored him with the ASWSU Exceptional Professor Award. Great to have Ron running our panel today. He brings years of executive leadership experience into our classrooms. He's served in senior management roles in companies like Micron, T-Mobile, Office Max, and Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. He specializes in strategy and in leadership development. He also works on change management and is an executive coach in his vast spare time. In fact, he's a coach with the International Coaching Federation. And for us, it's very important that our faculty are heavily engaged, either as researchers at the top of their disciplines or as practitioners at the top of their field. Ron is very familiar with a lot of the research our faculty does, and he is one of our most engaged practitioners. In fact, he owns a private consulting practice that focuses on healthcare, higher ed, and telecom. I have really been looking forward to today's discussion myself. Back when I used to teach and do research before I started deaning, I often taught human resources, and that was an area of focus for me in my own scholarship. And I'm really excited to kind of stay in touch with the industry and trends. So this is an exciting morning for me. And with that, I'd like to invite Ron and our panelists up to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. It's terrific to be here with you. Last night I had the opportunity to be in Seattle with our WSU Foundation and our annual gala. And like you, they're part of the greater Coug community that makes such a difference in the lives of many throughout the Inland Northwest and beyond and across the state. Thank you for being here. What a pleasure to be here with three colleagues, and thank you for your investment in us. We're looking forward to learning a little bit about what's happening in the space and in HR, and it's as challenging a space as we've experienced, right? It's the anomaly is unique for sure. I'd like to introduce our panelists. First off, we have Alice Harden. Welcome, Alice. A 91 grad. 81. See? But
I'll take 91.
And we're so grateful to have you here. Alice has given 23 years of service to the Northwest Farm Credit Services, a financial cooperative providing finance and related services to agriculture and natural resources. She has customers in Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Washington. She leads a team of human resource professionals responsible for employment and recruiting, compensation, benefits, employee relations, employee engagement, wellness, recognition programs, performance management, talent management, and succession planning services. Incredibly busy, very diverse and amazing. Previously, she was the director of the human resources for LeMaster Daniels, currently Clifton, Larson, and Allen, a regional CPA firm based in Spokane. She also worked for Red & Associates, an HR consulting firm, providing HR consulting services to nonprofit, small and medium-sized organizations. She is active in community service and is a member of the Red Cross Board for the Greater Inland Northwest Chapter, the Society for Human Resource Management, and the Inland Northwest Chapter of Society for Human Resource Management. She served on the YMCA board and was the co-chair for the Ferris High School Major 2008 fundraiser, Ham on Regal, and other schools and school events. Harden holds professional designations in HR. She is also certified as a Gallup Strength Coach and a Korn Ferry 360-degree coach as well. Welcome, Alice. Next up, we have Dr. Wade Larson. Since 2016, Wade has served as the Chief Human Resource Officer for Wagstaff's Incorporated here in Spokane and a global manufacturing firm. He also serves as the president of Optimal Talent Dynamics, a consulting group centered around business, leadership, and HR success. During his long career in the HR field and professional development, he's worked with many organizations and individuals as a leadership workforce consultant to improve processes and optimize performance. As an international speaker, author, trainer, and adjunct professor, Larson challenges leaders to transform their organizations, people, and communities to achieve their best. Over the past 30 years, he has gained unique insights into how leaders achieve success through their people. His latest book, HR Transformation, offers a new model for leaders to adapt to the new rules of today's workforce. He also wrote a book entitled Doing HR Better in 2018 and another, Mind Shifts in Healthcare, in 2019. Larson earned his doctorate of management in organizational leadership from the University of Phoenix and an MBA from Willamette University. He volunteers on several boards, including the Boy Scouts of America, the Spokane Workforce Council, and the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. Let's give a hand and a welcome to Wade as well. Hi, Stacy. Welcome. Stacy is a seasoned human resource executive with over 20 years of progressive healthcare human resources experience. She currently serves as the Chief Human Resource Officer for Providence nonprofit Catholic healthcare system, operating multiple hospitals across several states, with headquarters in Renton, Washington. She is committed to setting and ensuring high standards for HR delivery and fostering an environment of continuous improvement by motivating, mentoring, and developing others. She works to strategically shape change and promote fiscal responsibility while integrating the organization's core values. Previously, she held HR positions with the Inland Northwest Health Services and St. Luke's Rehabilitation Institute. Taylor serves on several local and national boards to serve workforce development, including the Spokane Workforce Council, Next Generation Zone, and the National Association of Workforce Boards. She earned a master's in human resource management from the University of Phoenix and is a certified human resources professional. Welcome, Stacy. Well, with a wonderful breakfast on board and a great Coug and community spirit, it's a pleasure to introduce our topic today, sustaining the most critical supply chain of all, America's workforce. We know we've had supply chain issues in a variety of different industries, and the challenges even seem more bleak in certain categories, but none may be more bleak than with this great resignation or transformation or disruption in the HR space. And with that, we'd like to entertain a few questions with our panelists. As we go through the questions with them, if you have a question, please raise your hand. You know, we don't want to wait till we get to the end of this and then take your questions. We'd like to integrate it along the way. So if you have a burning question, please raise your hand. We'd like to integrate it as we go. And with that, we'll get started here. And Stacy, if it's okay, we'll start with you on this, but it's perfectly fine to pass or share, but the current employment market definitely seems different than others that we've been experiencing to date. How is this employment experience different than before?
Yeah, you know, thinking about healthcare, and all of you know, healthcare has been a challenge, honestly, for decades from a staffing perspective, but the pandemic really has made it worse. Our employees are experiencing, just like what you said, Ron, the great resignation. People are leaving the healthcare industry in droves because the pandemic, our caregivers were really on the war zone. So, you know, when you think about the last, I guess, year and a half to 2 years, here at Providence, we're seeing about a 29 to 30% reduction in the amount of applicants that are actually seeking healthcare careers at this time, and we're experiencing just a mass exodus. Looking at some stats, I was on the Bureau of Labor Statistics the other day and looking at the February stats on what our nation looks like. And we saw in the month of February, almost 6 million people throughout our nation have left the workforce. And there's over 11.3 million jobs that are open, and that's across all sectors. So I know I'll speak from a healthcare perspective, but I know Alice and Wade are experiencing the same exact thing that we are.
Thank you for that, and maybe we just continue with Alice and then Wade.
You bet. I work in the financial services industry in agricultural finance, and we have certainly seen a huge competitive war, if you will, with our employees across our Northwest and across the nation, really, in farm credit. And so we're seeing definitely an increase in turnover. We are seeing employees kind of rethink what they want to do. Do they want to work full-time? Do they want to work part-time? We have had definitely more folks wanting to retire early. And we look at employees are kind of free agents. They can really write their own ticket in the financial services industry and go wherever they want. Because during COVID, we did work from home for about 1.5 years. We came back to our offices in June, but employees found that they could perhaps work at home forever if they wanted to and get a job regionally, locally, nationally, globally, and do things they wanted to do without having to return to an office. So we've definitely seen a competition for our folks and for them to be able to just write their own ticket and do what they want to do. So we've had to get very creative, and we'll talk about some of those things a little bit later as well. Wade?
Yeah, a lot of employers will take a look at this, and a lot of them are in denial because they're like, hey, this is just like the last 4 or 5 cycles that we've seen before, so we'll just wait this one out too. And I'm sharing with them, "Hey, this is different." And I'm like, well, how is that? First of all, they'll say, well, where did this come from? That must be the pandemic. I'm like, no, it's not. This thing's been coming for 30 years. We've known this one's coming for 30 years. The Department of Labor called this one out 30 years ago. That, hey, here in 2020, your labor versus demand is going to plummet. Boom. Like, well, how'd this happen? 6 million people left. Well, where did they go? Well, first of all, we stopped having babies in the 90s. We did. And so we have these people retiring, and we don't have enough to replace them, period. And it's not a political statement, but we shut off the borders 5 years ago, so we don't have that coming in for the workforce. We have 1.5 million moms or parents who left because they couldn't afford to find daycare, and a lot of them are not coming back. 2 million people left to go to the gig workforce, and at least half of them are not coming back because they're doing much better in the gig workforce. And on, there's a longer list. But the bottom line is, we had another 1 million people who left for retirement early. That was unexpectedly even beyond this silver tsunami. And that is not going to slow down. So yeah, it's different. And then what the impact is, you say, well, look at the unemployment rate. Well, you can average it out all you want. At 3%, we call that fully employed, right? Fully employed. Why? Because, well, there's still 3%. 1% is always in transition. 2% are the unemployable. You know the kind. They shouldn't be employed, but they are. You get it. So we have some sectors that have, we have some counties that have high unemployment. Some counties in Washington, for example, the rural counties that are up there 9%, 10%, where the large, the high, urban areas, they're like 2%. And so, average it out, you have some different pockets, but you have different industries. So in manufacturing, we're at 2.6% unemployment, which means we're employing about 0.5% that we shouldn't. And we see it. We're employing people that we shouldn't. So we have different implications. So it is different. Which means we have some different strategies that we'll have to apply and deal with, and it's a long-term deal. But bottom line is, this is multi-generational. It's not going to be a short fix.
Thank you, Wade. As Wade was speaking there, he was talking a little bit about how we got here and, what got us to this labor shortage. And I wonder if there's any other comments from either Stacy or Alice regarding that. Any historical things or trends or things you've seen in your industries that have come up and maybe bitten us?
No, I think Wade hit it, and Alice too. Our workforce looks different, right? During the last 2 years, people have had the opportunity to work from home in roles where that's an option. And so, self-included, have gotten really accustomed to being able to go and throw a load of laundry in between a meeting, right? And to bring, some individuals just aren't interested in coming back into the standard work environment anymore, and so it's impacting our organization as well.
Yeah, I would just add a little bit to what both Wade and Stacy have said. We have really seen an increase in our retirements, and we did plan because the labor shortage, as Wade indicated, has been shared for many years that it was going to go down and that we were going to have a shortage of employees. Specifically, Gen X is a smaller generation, and there's less babies that were born in the 90s, as Wade shared. And we're experiencing that as well. And then during the pandemic, we had many employees who came forward and said, I was going to retire in 25, but I think I'm going to do that now. And so we had a lot of employees come forward and want to retire early. And luckily, we have a pretty robust succession planning process. But, the bench is not as deep as it used to be because the employees are just not there. So just a massive group of folks who are retiring early and rethinking their lives.
Thank you. And as we go through this space, I think some might think, well, the pandemic's over. Maybe this shortage is going to be over. And is it fallacious thinking, or is there hope out there on the horizon in terms of the number of available candidates for jobs? Are we going to continue to see downward trends in terms of quality, trained, work-ready professionals?
Okay, I guess I'm taking it first. We're Rochambeauing back here, and I guess I got rock. So,
rock, paper, scissors.
So, I think we've got to be in it for the long game. This is not going to turn around just because our hospitals aren't seeing COVID patients anymore. So I think it's just this, and it's a kind of a vicious cycle. For us in healthcare, we're also influenced by what staffing looks like with our academic partners, right? So there's not, as individuals are leaving as educators in the clinical settings, we're not matriculating out enough clinicians to be able to backfill the slots of resignations. And so we're gonna have to do things differently. We're really getting creative on how we're sourcing and securing talent. At Providence, we've had to create some additional talent pipeline programs, some earn while you learn programs where we're training our own, because there's just not enough capacity with our community college partners and our university partners as well. So, like I said, just long game. We're gonna be here for another 5 years, 10 years. Hopefully within the next decade, we may be able to see some changes, but we're gonna have to do business differently.
Yeah, I would agree. We have a very robust university relations program. We work a lot with WSU, University of Idaho, Montana, and Oregon State. They're land-grant universities, so they have agricultural programs. We also recruit from the College of Business at WSU as well. So we really have focused on this strong university relations program to, as Stacy said, kind of grow your own, because those candidates are just not available. And we hire about 20 to 30 trainees each year and about 14 to 20 interns. And we feed our pipeline for our relationship managers and our credit officers, really our financial staff that work directly with our customers in our rural communities. And we train them over a 1-year period and put them through some very robust experiences so they're ready and able to fill the roles that we have. And we keep that pipeline going. A lot of our leaders said, we won't need to do that for very long. But we continue to find that program growing every year and adding more to that pipeline just to keep those positions filled. Because, as I mentioned earlier, our employees are free agents. They can kind of go anywhere. And the financial industry is very competitive, as many of our industries are today. So that has been a huge plus for us in that intern and trainee program. And we continue to try to reinvent that to make it even more attractive.
So to that question, is this a short-term deal or is it going to continue? That's the real question. It's not going to be a short-term deal. Most people project out 10 years, mostly because they can't or they don't want to project out longer than 10 years. But the group that did is Bain and Associates. They came out with a recent projection, and it goes out 20 to 30 years. It's multi-generational, and we're not going to have this influx of talent in terms of numbers. It's not going to happen. We're going to have what we have, and so the numbers are not going to go up. So this hope that we're going to all of a sudden have more people, it's not going to be there. We as employers are going to have to figure out how to do more with less in terms of numbers. But we also have another thing that we have to deal with, and that's the talent. That's the capability. That's the knowledge, skills, and capability, and that's another challenge. That's a different challenge. And it's not getting, that one's challenged because the folks who are coming in, maybe, have you noticed that they're coming in challenged, right? They're not coming in as capable in a lot of cases as they used to be. Have you noticed that? That's an expectation. We're going to have to figure out how to bring them in and train them to a level that maybe we were used to hiring them at in the past. And that's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with. So as employers, we're going to have to learn how to deal with doing more with less in terms of employees, and that means we're going to have to learn how to streamline. We're going to have to learn how to automate faster and better, which means we're going to have to upskill our current employees to meet that level of automation so that they can meet that automation level. We're going to learn how to upgrade, so as we bring people in at lower levels, we can upgrade them to meet the standards that we were used to hiring them in the past. But that also means that we're going to have to get ready to pay them more and to compensate them more so that we can bring in the best talent that we can keep them, and we can treat them that way. We also have to shift our mindsets. We'll talk more about this later, but we have to shift our mindsets and stop thinking about how things were and understand that they are how they are today. There's a new set of terms and conditions that the employees are working under of what they want and what they need. And you say, well, that's a new generation, these darn kids. And it's not. What it is that everybody wants to be treated this way. It's just the older generations have just learned to be quiet about it. Everybody wants to be treated this way. And we need to learn how to upskill, upgrade, automate, treat things differently, do more with less, and and treat people like humans. And this is all part of the process. We'll keep going more on this, but the bottom line is we will not have access to a whole new influx of people. We will not have an influx to new talent. We're going to have to learn how to adapt.
Thank you. Just want to do a quick check-in in our audience if anyone has any questions at this point in the discussion. Yes. I think we've got a mic. We've got a mic coming. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Appreciate the question.
One other interesting dynamic we've been seeing, a lot of employers have pay scales based on economic factors across the U.S., and we're seeing a trend already where employees working in rural communities, the pay scales have all gone out the window now. Can you speak a little bit to what you're seeing, what you're expecting there as well?
We have 3 different versions, so why don't
Yeah,
why
I
don't
can
you-
start. We've gone through a little bit of an evolution on the compensation side because compensation, as you said, is kind of out the door. It's whatever the employee is asking for based on their circumstances, and you kind of have to figure out how that fits into your compensation structure. So we have taken a hard look at our comp structure. We have implemented mid-year adjustments. We have had to respond to competitive market offers from our current employees who are looking. So we've taken a national look at our compensation and determined geographically where that fits, if the individual's in a smaller rural community, how that fits. But we have had to up the ante on compensation in almost every area, and it's a little bit of a balance. You're trying to figure out, if I pay this new person who's coming in more money than the people that are there, then I automatically have internal equity issues. And then you're going back to management and the board and saying, okay, we need more money because these people are going to leave if they know that we just paid Steve, 20% more than what they're making. So our compensation people are running, they're in this hamster wheel all the time, running. In fact, one of our managers is at a regional farm credit compensation sharing conference right now, and she's sending all these emails to us. People are doing this, people are doing this, people are doing this. So I got 3 of them while I was sitting here this morning because she's back east. So it's just constant. And we meet with our executives on a every other week basis right now to talk about what we're doing, what we're hearing, what we're running into, how do we want to respond. So it's like boom, 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 we're having to respond right now. We can't wait, we got to wait 6 months till we do our mid-year process. Okay, well, these 10 people are leaving. So we got to figure out how to respond to that now, real time, but not overreact, because if it evens out at some point, we don't want to have all these, overpaid people or too many people to be able to respond to that as an organization. So it is a constant effort. We're evaluating it all the time. The compensation survey you did last month that you got information back now, it's out the door already, because people are reinventing what they want and what they need, and they're able to get it. So you have to decide as an organization, how far do you want to go? How much is enough to get them in the door and keeping some level of internal equity? So we really have to look at that on a national basis, because employees are out there, they can go anywhere they want. So you have to find the talent you need to fill the roles and maintain some level of equity. But it's ongoing every day. It's unbelievable right now.
That pay change is happening so fast. It is so fast. As soon as you make the pay adjustment, it's already irrelevant. Right. And so the standard sources for pay, your pay scale, your pay.com, whatever, that stuff is easily 6 months to 12 months behind. It is so fast. Right now, our best source of data is calling up our competition. We're using co-opetition, and we're not colluding. Yeah, my friends at Carter said, no, we don't have to change our pay. We don't have to. We're taking all your employees. I know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it works. But we are on we have a hotline to all of each other because we steal each other's employees, or we have been, but we're trying not to steal each other's employees now. But we're openly talking about each other's compensation to maintain stability in the local market. But all of a sudden, jobs that weren't nationally marketed are now nationally marketed because we are competing with everybody. But we do still play internal whack-a-mole. Right, of hey, I got the job offer, and we have to ask the question, how far are we willing to go? Because if I go high on that one, they're going to tell everybody. In fact, we have individuals, look what I just got. And then that's going to create an internal stir. And that happens. You have to ask those questions. What are your thresholds? But, I mean, it was mid-year last year where you have to say, look, I need $1 million. And they're, we're not going to give you $1 million. Okay, you're going to lose 25% of your employees. And I'm serious. And this is the kind of conversation that we're having now, and we will continue to have for probably the next year and a half, at least.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add is just being in a highly labor environment. So at Providence, we're almost wall-to-wall represented at Sacred Heart. We have 2 contracts over at Holy Family, our Stevens County ministries. And what we've experienced from a compensation standpoint, so when you negotiate a contract, those contracts are in place for 3 years. Well, think back 3 years ago, we were nowhere near where we are right now from an inflation standpoint within our community. So we've had to form different conversations with our union reps now and really have a more collaborative conversation about what compensation looks like and opening up contracts from a comp perspective mid-cycle, which is really unheard of. You would never have done that 3 years ago. You wait until the next bargaining cycle, and then you go through all of the market increases, and we just were not able to sustain that any longer.
I will say that and sorry to jump back in, but the number one reason employees are using comp as the primary reason why they're jumping, and it's not. Comp is not the reason why they're jumping. They're looking for an excuse to leave. They're mad about about their managers. They're mad about their culture. They're mad about the conditions. And you know what? If you take a step back and look objectively at the situation, things may actually be better than they actually were 2 years ago. They may be making more money. Things may be better. The terms and conditions may actually be better than they were 2 years ago. But where we find the issues coming up is where the top executives aren't communicating. They're not transparent. They're not saying things are okay. You don't have a banner waiver saying, come, let's go, let's get through this together. We're okay. When that environment doesn't happen, when you're not taking care of your people, when you don't tell them, hey, we love you, we take care of you, it's okay. We're going to get through this together. When that doesn't exist, they're going to talk amongst themselves, they're going to create the crises, and they're going to look for a reason to go, and they're going to tell you it's money. And it's not.
Thank you for that question, Matt. Really appreciate that. Any other questions at this time? Yes.
How do you guys deal with ghosting? Are you guys experiencing that? The world of ghosting?
Every single day.
We're getting it in my industry as
Yep.
well to some degree. And it just always surprises me that you even hire somebody and they won't even show up.
Yeah.
When they
Yeah.
get hired. It's like, how can that be? But it is. So the new environment, the new terms and conditions.
Yep. It's engagement on that initial conversation and engagement to start, right? And Wade briefly mentioned it, but it's really forming that, it's relational. And so making sure that there's those connections every single day between the point of offer to the point of start. And we're experiencing ghosting just like I'm sure all of you are as well. And not even just in an employment sector, but I'm also trying to sell a house right now and have had people just not show up for a house showing. It's just something different about our culture lately. And if you have a magic solution to that, I'd be really interested.
Yeah, we've mostly experienced that in the interview process, where folks are, they schedule an interview and then just don't show up. I think we've only had 1 or 2 maybe that didn't show up at the actual job. And we do have a pretty robust onboarding process where the manager has touch points with that employee along the way before they even start. We send them a welcome gift and all kinds of different things that we do. But luckily we haven't had a lot of that, but certainly a little bit on the interview side. And it's just frustrating. And again, I don't have the answer to that either.
It doesn't surprise me that these organizations don't have the ghosting take place after they show up, because they're good cultures and good organizations. Working with a number of clients, though, they'll have ghosting take place where they'll go on break and just never come back. They'll go to lunch and not even come. They won't even pick up their last paycheck. It's that kind of ghosting. And so here's what happens a lot of times. Now, for them to ghost you during the interview process, chances are they probably have multiple job offers when you give them your job offer, and they'll just take the one that's better, or they're holding out for something else to come through and they just won't call you back. That's the nature of the game. When they come to work for you and then they ghost you after they've started, chances are good that happens because they show up and they recognize that the deal that you promised isn't what they got. And so for me, that's where my recommendation is your number one strategy for recruitment is actually retention. No matter what your business is, no matter who you are, whatever your industry is, your number one strategy should be retention, period, end of story. And that goes to your culture. If your culture is not set, if your current employees are not happy, whatever you're going to promise and recruit your people to come in through that door, you can promise them the world. You can promise them happiness, joy, whatever you want. But when they walk through that door on day one, they're going to have conversations with their coworkers. If their coworkers say, that's not what happens here, that's not how it really is, let me tell you how it really is, they're done. Because at some point they told their better half, hey honey, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take all of our friends, our family, the people who have provided for our mortgage, food for the last 17 years, right? I'm going to leave them. We're going to go work for somebody who we don't know. No, trust me, it's a good idea. And they're going to walk through the door and boom, it's not there. It's not there. Retention and culture have to be your number one strategy for recruitment. And when they walk through the door and they don't see it, they're going to leave and go back to their old job.
Thank you for that question. I think, Don, you had a question. You got a mic right there.
Well, oh, sorry. There's a mic. Let me yell into the microphone. So you've kind of addressed a little bit of what came to mind as you're speaking to this issue. Recently, just poking around on LinkedIn on positions that I'm very familiar with, which is staff training and development. I'll see a position, nationwide out there, pretty good salary ranges, and I'll see that same position open up 9 months later. It is the exact same company with that same position that they were advertising for. So somebody obviously was not happy with $125,000 or whatever the range was. And it just strikes me of going back exactly, Wade, what you were talking about, which is they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, which is get people in and create that culture that says this is a place that you are valued and we want you here. And unfortunately, with some of these trends you've been talking about, have you been seeing, do the managers, the leaders, the on-the-floor supervisors have the time to show them how much they care about them, or are they just going old school about get the damn job done? So comments or thoughts around that?
Well, it's an expectation for us at Providence, for our leaders. It's not a negotiable that, Wade said it, retention, retention, retention. And so it is one of our leaders' performance metrics is on engaged caregiver, we call our employees caregivers, on employee engagement and retention. And so that is, because that's a priority, they make it a focus to connect with people, and it's really taking care of the whole person. Now, it's not just, I think Wade mentioned it earlier, our model of just get in and make the widget just doesn't happen anymore. You have to be able to look at the whole person, as far as for us, looking at the mental health status and providing mental health resources, 24/7 behavioral health services, looking at financial support for childcare subsidies, benefit subsidies, really looking at everything that surrounds not just the employee-employer relationship anymore, but it goes beyond the employment walls.
Yeah, I would add to that as well. We have a very robust employee engagement program. We use the Gallup organization for that. We've been an exceptional place to work through them for about 6 years. And we also post on Glassdoor and ask our folks to, tell about their experience. And generally we have very, very positive feedback and a strong culture. And we tout that every day, and our employees that are there A majority of the employees will say that we live that culture, and it is a huge expectation for our leaders to live we have 8 leadership competencies that we expect of all employees. We put that in their performance review, and their managers comment on how they're demonstrating those leadership competencies, even if they're not a leader. We believe in our organization that anyone can be a leader. You don't have to have the actual title or designation. And then we also measure employee engagement for all of our leaders, and they receive an employee engagement score for their team. And we ask them to action plan around that and talk to their employees about engagement. And that is an expectation that we review at least quarterly with our leaders and with all of our employees across the organization, and that's from our CEO all the way down. So it is ingrained in our culture, and we do require it, and we talk about it all the time. We have a robust leadership training program and a supervisor training program that we provide every year for our employees and leaders, and we reinforce all those concepts. Now, they're only as good as the person is going to take them and use them. And so in the event that our leaders are not using them, then that's up to the leader above them to talk to them about what they're doing or not doing, and is this the right role for them, and making sure that they're in the right role and they can reinforce those competencies that we expect, and also the engagement. But it's so huge to have your culture, because as Wade said, if they come in and they're like, yeah, you tout all these awards and do all these things, and it's really not the way it is here. But I would say that probably the majority of our employees would tell you that it is that way, and that's what keeps our employees there, and we have to retain them, because that's the name of the game. If you can't retain them, they're gonna go somewhere else and get what they want. So you've gotta live your culture and reinforce it all the time with your leaders and all of your employees at the front line.
Reinforcing what Stacy and Alice mentioned, about 3 years ago, and talk about Gallup, Gallup issued they published a book called It's the Manager. Mm-hmm. If you've seen that book, it's one of the 2 best books out there right now. The second one came from Gallup last year, called Workplace Wellbeing, or Well-Being in the Workplace, one of those 2. But those are the best set of $20 you're going to spend. So in the referring to It's the Manager, the bottom line is this: to the employee, the manager is the company. Period. End of story. What the manager does and says is the company. The company, you can have all the policies, procedures, initiatives, mantras, banner waving that you want, but how the manager implements it, applies it, reacts to it, is what the employee is going to say. CEO can come out with a new email and new video, and then the employee's going to look to the boss and say, "So what do you think about it?" "Yeah, just another program of the month, guys. Get back to work." And then there's no credibility to it. It's done. The manager has to drink the Kool-Aid, pour the Kool-Aid, and reinforce it. And if he or she does not, it's all over. It's the manager. It's the manager who maintains and manages the culture. And when the coworkers are also critical. They have to manage the culture. They have to live the culture as well. And the manager has to reinforce it and call it and hold them accountable to it. And if he or she does not, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I don't care how good the culture is inside the organization, but every culture has subcultures. And the manager owns the culture over which he or she oversees. And that's where it happens. That's how it has to happen.
Thank you, Don. Other questions? Yes, we'll go here and then over here.
I'm hearing a lot, we need to do more and more and more, which we all know that we're juggling as much as we can, right? So I think it goes back to an earlier thing that you said, which is we all need to reshift. Just because position A is now open, maybe position A needs to rethink about that position. How do we automate that, right? Where do we find different solutions or shift to make do with less? So I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but that's my thought.
Yep. One thing we've done in doing more with less is looked at our workforce and asked them what else they want to do within the organization. And we've offered an opportunity for some areas that aren't as busy in a certain cycle to be able to go into another area and help out during their busy time. And so we've reemployed people in our organization to work in other areas. We actually tried that during COVID. It was an idea that came through from, we have an innovation area where people can put in recommendations of how to make things better, and it came through that. And so we actually did that and have received great feedback from our employees about doing that and doing more with less, and reemploying and giving them that additional opportunity to learn and grow within the organization. So that was one thing we tried that was pretty successful.
We try to break things down into competencies. When you look at a team of 4 and all of a sudden we have a vacancy, then the traditional approach is, oh my gosh, we have a vacancy, we have to go apply for that job, and hey, we don't have any applicants for it, then oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Instead of looking at it as a team of 4 people with 4 jobs, break it out. You have 100 tasks. You have 100 competencies that have to be performed, and you just happen to have 4 people doing it. When you break it out to 100 competencies, chances are good you haven't looked at this in years. If you break it out to 100 competencies, take a look and you say, what are we doing that can actually be eliminated? Let's streamline it and let's get rid of some stuff. That's number 1. Number 2, what can you eliminate, or what can you automate? Are there some things you can automate in systems? Are there things that we're doing by people that we shouldn't be? Let's start to automate some things. Then what are some things you can delegate? Are some things that we have highly paid people doing that we shouldn't? We can dump those things down to lower paid people, or some easier people, or some people that we can find out there in the marketplace that we can bring in and do, so that the higher paid people can actually do higher paid things, and we can actually engage them further because they're not doing things that are really just JoJo work. They hate that. Let's re-engage them. But then, you start to realign this, start to reshift, and then you start to say, do I even need that position? You may not need that position after all. And then if you do need it, chances are good you realign these, you reshifted these, people are more engaged because they're doing some cool stuff, and then the position that you actually need in the end, you may have realigned it and you have a totally different position that now you can fill with somebody who is a different skill set. It's a different approach.
Yeah, and in healthcare, we're looking at clinical care models regularly and really looking at automation as well. But what can we do to provide patient care in a different model? Because we know that there is a significant nursing shortage throughout our nation. So what can we take from a care model and shift to a different type of caregiver? And that's where I just briefly mentioned we're looking at, we've implemented some earn while you learn type programs to upskill our current workforce, our housekeepers, our dietary workers, our patient transport, training them up to become nursing assistants or medical assistants, and doing that all in-house, and then engaging our community partners as well to bring in talent that may not have originally considered healthcare as a viable option, just to barriers in education, cost of education, not being able to pay for tuition or commit the time without having an income at the same time, as earning a credential. So really doing things completely different in the healthcare sector as well, because you're right, we're just not gonna have the talent anytime soon.
Thank you. We may have had another question over here. Yes.
I just had a quick follow-up to the questions on culture. With employees changing jobs more frequently than ever, and a significant amount of the workforce still being at home, has the way in which you build or define culture changed, or is it still the same, inherent need of achievement from people, and just with all the other noise going around, people have gotten away from paying attention to that culture?
Do you want to start?
I can start. I don't think our culture has changed. The way in which we engage our remote workforce is definitely different, because it's harder to build relationships when you're over the screen, right? It's easy to network when you're here physically in this space together in community. It's much more difficult in a virtual environment. So while our culture, our purpose for our organization hasn't changed, the way in which we have to engage our employees to recognize that purpose and to stay part of community has definitely shifted. And the burden is on our core leaders, our management staff, to be able to continue to build those relationships and to still have, teams and camaraderie in a not physical side-by-side, environment. There's no water cooler conversations, right? So it does become much more difficult.
Yeah, during COVID, it was really a challenge because we always tout our culture, and it's a very relational culture, and we're serving our customers, so we need to be there for the customers as well in our rural communities where we serve our customers directly. So during COVID, we had an engagement team across the organization that met virtually on a regular basis. And then we actually stood up a site on Teams, a family site on Teams with all these ideas of what to do for working parents who had kids at home they were trying to teach at the same time. And then we also had a channel on Teams for ideas for recognition, ideas for how to engage your teams. And we did, many of you probably did, virtual happy hours. We did staff meetings on a regular basis. We asked our leaders, please touch base with your employees every week. Get them on a video call, look at them on the video. And we received a lot of feedback that at first it was really awkward, but after that, people really looked forward to those happy hours and coffee time and all the different collaboration methods that they were trying during COVID. But we made a decision to bring everybody back to the office in June of 21. And so we did bring everyone back, so we've been back for about a year. And at first, people were really not excited about that, and we did lose some people over that, not a lot, but some. And when they came back, the feedback that we received was, oh my gosh, it's so nice to see everybody, and this really is the culture that I knew was still there, but forgot about it, because it was all about that relationship and seeing people face to face. And now that I'm not at home, but I can go back and forth because we have a little hybrid model, I find that the culture is reinvigorating itself, and you see people now by the water cooler, you see the staff meetings out in our hall area where people are having, baby showers and wedding showers and different things to integrate and be a team again. So I think like Stacy said, I think our culture was still there, but it was a little sleepy. And now you can just see it coming back, and people saying, I really am glad I'm back now, and I appreciate the hybrid option, and I didn't realize how much I missed it.
Some things about culture, just as kind of some reminders. First of all, culture is a living, breathing object, right? It's a creature. It's a living entity. And some other things about culture is you have to manage it, or it will manage you. It has to be an active management deal, and it's going to be, it's alive. And if we ignore it, it will take on a life of its own. And so these changes that have taken place over the last couple of years, if we didn't manage it actively, it's going to manage us. And so what's culture built on? Well, if we're actively managing it, the culture should be built on values, core values. And if we understand what those values are, then we can manage it effectively. And those core values should be things that we believe in, things that the company should be based on, things that we're willing to hire on, fire on, things that at the end of the day, would we go bankrupt on if it's a choice between profits or the values? That's what values are. And that's what culture should be based on. That's what we should be making our decisions based on. And if that's how that's built into the system, if that's how we're making our decisions, if that's how managers are managing and employees are doing their jobs, cool. And that should be intertwined no matter what the format is, no matter what happens, the challenges that we get through. That's the kind of thing that we say, this is how we do things here. And that should be interrelation no matter what the challenge is that we're facing, no matter what the problem is. And that's where the banner should be waving out there by the top leaders and the lower end leaders saying, this is how we do things, but this is the basis upon which we're adapting. That's what culture does, if culture is done right. When we don't do culture right and we let the culture dictate to us, it's saying, we're going left and right. Why? Because the wind is blowing left and right. And so where does culture go? Depends on us. Depends on us. And the strong leaders are going to understand how culture works, and they're going to use it to their advantage to be even stronger out of this. The ones who use culture to their advantage, take a look at the pandemic, they were very successful. There are people that have doubled, tripled their business and even more. They've made a lot of money, come a long ways, and they've been very successful during this pandemic because they understood it, and people have benefited, and they're doing great. Others have tanked completely, and they say, what happened? Well, I thought we were a great company. They let the culture dictate their way. We have a lot of lessons to learn, a lot of things to do, but really, what's culture have to do with it? Depends on us. We have to understand culture, manage it, and that's going to be the basis for our success. But it starts with us understanding it and managing it.
Thank you for those comments and for those questions. As we think, we've got one more question here, and then we want to transition. No, I'd love for you to go. Or we could paper rock, please.
Thank you. My question is wrapped around this idea of culture and growth, and earlier we were talking about like efficiencies and automation. When we think about organizations across the world and country, a lot of them talk about developing their people and, their learn and earn. We're talking about that. How do we effectively recognize when individuals are partaking in these things in a remote world? How do we, if adults make meaning through experience, and the informal experience of being in an office and being able to show your product to the people around you and to influence others by the work that you do is effectively minimized through remote work. How do we do that well in today's world? And the other question I have about is, are there ways for which we can positively influence a culture of growth without being able to share in real time?
I'll take, that's a whole lot packaged
That's a
into
lot.
that.
Yeah, that's a big question.
I'll start, first of all, growth and development is huge, and most employees are actually asking about that in the first interview. They'll ask about growth and development opportunities before they ask about salary, because they're not interviewing for this job, they're actually interviewing for the next job. And if we don't have the transparency to say, this is what we have in mind for you in the future, for your next job, they'll probably not even take this job. Because we're saying, hey, how can we fill this job today? They're saying, what do you have in store for me tomorrow and tomorrow? That's what they're interviewing for, because if we don't have growth and development opportunities, not just promotion, but growth, they don't want it. That's more important to them than salary in most cases. That's growth. So how do we as employers, we need to integrate that in to the prospect. And it's not just, hey, we'll throw you some money to go to school. That's great, but then what are you going to let me do with it? They want to be part of the solution. They don't want to be just here learning stuff. That's great, but they want to do something. They want to be an active part of the solution to help the company be successful, and they get frustrated when we don't ask them to help be part of the solution. That's part of growth and development and active engagement. And that's part of us engaging them to say, hey, we hired them to be smart, so let's let them be smart and be part of the solution. That's got to be an active element of that process. And that's got to be incorporated into our engagement and into our culture. And if it's not, I think we're missing out on a huge opportunity, and I think it's a huge part of our success as a company. So.
In terms of growth and development, we did incorporate a requirement for our leaders to have growth and development conversations as part of their monthly touch base with all of their team members, and also in their performance review process that is discussed as a requirement for the leader to talk about growth and development and where the employee fits in terms of their role into the different growth and development opportunities that we have. We have a very robust training program for our financial folks, for our relationship managers, our credit officers, our financial specialists. They go through rigorous curriculum, as well as soft skills training, LinkedIn learning. We have amazing amounts of training and development that our employees can partake in our organization. So that is an expectation. And then receiving that feedback and recognition from their leader in terms of, you're getting this training, what do you want to do next? And is that opportunity available within our organization? Just because they're virtual or they're partially virtual doesn't mean that those conversations and that expectation goes away. It continues to be an expectation, and we didn't find that to be a problem at all during COVID. We continued to offer virtual classes. We continued to require that with our leaders and have ongoing discussions with them. So you have to focus on it, or your employees are going to leave and find an opportunity to grow and develop if you don't offer it. So I think that's definitely an expectation of a leader, and an expectation of the employee to ask for what they need and understand what development opportunities there are for them in the organization. So it's an active conversation that takes place on a regular basis for sure.
I'm just going to say ditto.
Ditto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I missed the second part of his question, which is the asynchronous part of bringing it in. And so, not to delay too much, but it's going to bug me if I don't hit your second part of the question, because having worked for University of Phoenix for so long as a teacher, Yeah, we deal with asynchronous, so I gotta be there. Anything you can do in a synchronous world, you can do in an asynchronous world. Absolutely. And so now on the one hand, we do see some trends because with the employers saying, hey, we want you to come back to the office, they recognize the energy that happens where people bump into each other, right? Hey, those of us in HR recognize that, hey, we walk down the hall to have those engagements and the doors are shut. There's no one there, and that free flow energy isn't happening. And I think businesses have lost a lot by not having that. And just popping onto Teams isn't the same. It's not the same because then you have to presume that somebody's going to be there, and it's not the same as just bumping into each other in the hallway or at the water cooler. That's not going to happen. And so we actually see the incentives happening, because it's like, hey, we need you to come back. I'm not going to come back. I'm going to work from home. It's not the same energy. It's not the same flow, and companies are missing out on that, and they sense it, they feel it, and they're actually paying incentives to have people come back into the office 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever. They're actually offering bigger pay increases for that to happen. That's a current trend that's happening because they know that engagement. Now, how do I share? How do I innovate? There are several ways to do that. Whether it's by video, hey, we all can shoot video. We can shoot video, have the compendiums. We have these resources within Teams or other places where you can drop the ideas. There are plenty of places to do idea sharing. Lots of ideas. As an online instructor, we will drop ideas and just say, hey, here's the thread, drop your ideas here, let's critique one another. There are plenty of ways to share ideas out there and get a lot of real-time feedback. The sky's the limit on how you do it. It's a matter of us to ask the question and to promote it. The resources are there, the tools are there. We've come so far, especially in the last 2 years, because we had to on technology. We need to just use the tools.
Did we cover both of those great questions? Any follow-up to that? All right, thank you. Great questions from many of us here in the audience. Isn't it interesting as we having this conversation, this visual comes into my mind's eye of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And each human being is living at one of those levels right now. Each one of us is living at one of those levels, right? Is it safe and healthy for me to be a part of this organization? Then the next level up. Do I belong? And in what ways do I belong? And how does that belonging show up? And then kind of the next level is, now that I belong, is it safe for me to take smart, healthy risks within the culture of the organization such that I can contribute at the next level? Because not only do I belong now, but I'm growing, I'm innovating. You're unleashing that power within me. And rather than doing my 8 and hitting the gate, I'm in a space where I'm awake, alive, and on purpose, and bringing my creative self and turning that on. And then, after I've done that, then I level up to self-actualization, where I'm in a space now where I have literally brought my voice to the world, to the space and the place. Regardless of the type of work I'm doing, I'm bringing that voice, and I can then, in a self-actualized space, be able to mentor others through that same process. And imagine, if you will, if we each had an audit card, and on that audit card, it was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we literally would go around and say, where might each of our individual employees, members of our organizations, employee owners, whatever the context might be, where might they be? Are they at the belonging or starting to belong? And what can we help them do to level up and to level up? Isn't it true? I mean, as professionals, and we were just talking about it moments ago, I'm not just interviewing for this job, and we know what the turnover, the cost of turnover is incredible, especially if we cap someone at the belonging level, and we're not allowing them to move into that unique contribution space. So if you want me to see your organization as a place where I can build a career and actually, bring my voice to the world, now you've captured me. Yes, I want a competitive salary. Yes, I want those kind of things. And I'm curious if we just open it up to the panel, as we think about that, how do we create and converse? I mean, we talked about, if you're not actively managing your culture, somebody else is, right? Or something else is. But it's much more than that. And how can I not just earn the street cred that we can level you up, and in our organization, you can transcend through each of those levels, but how do we build it, or what might we be doing to nourish each one of those spaces and places? And I'd love to hear from the panel regarding that. How do we nourish, and we've talked about employee development and 360s, but what else might be in the space such that our scorecard would flow all the way to the top, that you can come into our organization? One quick thought here. Sometimes our organization is capped or a certain size, and we almost have to let somebody go to have them come back. Right, so I just wanted to acknowledge that in the process as well. But just like to open up thoughts about moving individuals from a job perspective to a career perspective, navigating through Maslow's hierarchy.
I think the other thing to think about is to move through those levels is making sure that our employees are connected to the why, right? Knowing the purpose of every single role, their purpose on how they contribute to the mission. And we, just like Alice says, we survey our staff on a regular basis, at least quarterly, in little pulse type surveys, and then a full survey every year. And I'm always astounded by the scores that we see at Providence that our employees are really connected to the mission of our organization because we live it, we breathe it. As leaders, we walk the walk and talk the talk, and our employees know exactly what they're here to do. And it's, for us as a non-for-profit Catholic healthcare organization, is to serve the poor and the vulnerable. And we breathe that every single day, and we making sure that we're meeting the needs of our community members, the people who seek our services, but we're also doing that with all of our employees as well. And so connecting that purpose really helps them to raise up to that next level, right? Because if they don't know why you're doing what you're doing, what's the ultimate end game, then you're going to be stuck at level 1, level 2. Right?
Yeah. As I hear you talk about that, this is live now. As I hear you talk about that notion that comes to mind of who am I within this organization and its mission, and deeply identifying that I am a member, I belong. I am a contributor, I belong and I contribute. I am a mentor who contributes and belongs. And that mission, if they can align that, their individual and the organizational mission, then I can see that career and that longevity with that. Thank you for that. Other thoughts?
Yeah, we have also a similar scenario where our mission is really to provide services to farmers and ranchers in rural communities and also have our employees thrive in the communities where they work and live. And our employees know that from the minute they walk in the door. They live the culture. The competencies I talked about earlier, the 8 leadership competencies are introduced the day they get there. And also that we value their career and what do they want to be. In this organization, we talk about that from the very beginning, the career development, the training we offer, what they want to do, and how can we help them get there. And we have a robust process around that. And you mentioned earlier, they might have to leave and come back. There are definitely places where employees have come to us and said, I want to do this. We don't have that available yet for them in the organization. So they do leave, and then they come back. We have a lot of boomerangers in our organization. I'm one of them who left the organization at one point and came back. And we get lots of great feedback about that. So I think the mission and tying themselves to the mission and understanding that we care about them and the engagement questions we ask, one of them is, does someone care about you here at work? Do you believe someone cares about you? Does your supervisor talk to you? Do you have opportunities to learn and grow? They rate all of those items every year. And we delve into that data on a team-wide basis, an organizational basis. Where can we learn and grow as an organization to help our employees continue to develop and grow in their careers? And if they can't do it here, can we help them go do it somewhere else and come back if there's someone we want to retain as an employee? So it's just continuing to have that top of mind, continuing to reinforce it, continuing to listen to your employees, and using the data that they're giving you to enhance the programs and develop new ones and reinvent yourself if you need to make sure you're addressing what your employees are looking for. Otherwise, again, they'll go find it somewhere else. So that mission, vision, values is just so important to continue to talk about for their development.
Okay, so Maslow's hierarchy is built as a pyramid, so we're going to take a little walk through the sands of Egypt to get back to I promise I'll get back to the pyramid, though. This is the ADHD at work, so Stacy's going to kick me if we go too far off track. But the reason I take you here is because this challenge, I think, is bigger than us as employers. It's much bigger, and we need to take a bigger stab at this. Because I do have our employees, but then we have our future employees. We have everybody, and so this is part of the reason why I've taken a step back. So while I'm still overseeing HR. I promoted my second in command to HR manager, so she can work on the day-to-day of HR. So I could take a step back and work on workforce development. And that puts me out in the community more to work on the bigger problem. And the bigger problem involves a lot more people, because I do have to take care of my current employees, and retention is my #1 strategy, and I do have to take care of them to work them internally, but I have to work on the bigger challenge. I have to work with K-12, the K-12 system, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm recruiting anybody from kindergarten on up. And that means I have to expose these kids a lot sooner to work. I have to expose them to the tangibles, right? We've taken the shop classes out of the schools. Well, we put them back in, and it's not the same. I have to expose them to careers and career options a lot sooner, which means I have to work with the schools, and I recognize that they don't know what we need in business. And it's not their fault, we haven't talked to them. We have to build that relationship. I work with community colleges and the universities and try and build those bridges and relationships, and that's a different strategy. I recognize that my workforce isn't just the incoming students, but it's the displaced workers. It's the people coming in from the military. It's the people who want to change their careers and shift their careers, who need to reskill and upskill. It's coordinating with my competition and others in the area to say we got to take this on. It's building this summer production academy where we bring in the kids, and while it's start off with 20 kids, this year we're going to have 80 kids, because we built satellites, and we're going to run this thing with 4 locations with the summer academy to interest the kids. But it's not about the 80 kids, it's supposed to be 20 kids. It's about the conversation now I can have about CTE programs, career technical education programs, which opens the door to everywhere and everything. It's about bringing in these programs that we've tried to solve these problems individually, and we spend millions of dollars trying to solve these problems. I have Career Connect Washington, which does great work, but they are spinning their wheels over here doing these little programs over here. I've got the Spokane Workforce Council, which does amazing work, and they've got their programs over here. And I've got AWB, which does their programs over here, which does amazing work. I've got all these people doing amazing work, but we've got to bring them together. We've got to bring them together so that we can work together, so I can have employers reach out to employees and bring them in to say, let's talk. I've got to have the student who can work with their parents, provided they have parents, at the kitchen table, and in about 30 to 60 minutes build out a life plan to say, here's how I can get from here to my job, right, at the kitchen table, without having to know 20 separate websites and figure that out. That's going to take them 8 to 10 hours to track that thing, maybe. I've got to have better success rates for that. I've got to help the employees know that they're loved and how to keep them there. I've got to figure out how to upskill and upgrade my employees without having to build my own internal workforce development center inside my own organization. Instead, I have to bring together these other resources of apprenticeships and IRC programs and groups together, so I can build tracks with the universities, with WSU, with SEC, whichever program that I'm at. I've got to bring these together, and to be honest, we as employers, we need a leader. We're looking for a leader to take charge, to say, let's own this, because right now there's nobody that's stepping up yet. There's not somebody that's stepping up in this. There's a prime opportunity, WSU, there's a prime opportunity to step out and be the leader, right? To say, let's take charge and let's own this thing. And let's be there, because right now we are in a desperate need. There's a catalyst that's waiting to be had to say we need this. So as an owner, as a business, right, as a business, there's a huge opportunity. But anyway, it's bigger than us. It's bigger than us. And we need resources, because we're busy doing stuff. We're busy doing stuff. And so for us as a business, we want it, we need it, we love it, but there's a huge opportunity to create something more, something bigger that can make this happen on a global scale. So there, I'm back to the pyramid.
That was an awesome walk through the sands of the desert. Yes, we have a question here. Mike is on its way. Hi. Thanks for your
Giving me
engagement.
exercise
It's
today.
Okay, so in different sectors, we've heard this saying, it has to reset itself, right? You just cannot continue to excel at the level. And I feel that time is resetting itself. How fast business has been moving because of technology and the fact that we can be all tapped in 24 hours a day is not a realistic expectation on our mental health, etc. So in a way, as leaders, we also need to reshift our expectation and our communication with everyone, right? A little bit more empathy, and even with our clients on deliverable times and what that looks like. I mean, supply chain, as we all know, that's another pinch that we're all feeling, and handcuffing us on when we can deliver things as well. So any thoughts you may have that on just resetting time and what that expectation now looks like? And maybe even for the good. We have to all just rebalance.
I got mine.
Go ahead.
All right. I've got three, it goes back to the three basic questions. It always comes back to the three basic questions, which more of my clients still struggle with. We always start with a third question, which is how. How do I? We create this laundry list, and we're constantly in the hamster wheel of go, 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 go. Got to get more done. Go, 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 go. Produce. Get stuff out the door. GSD, right? Get stuff done. Get stuff done. Go, 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 go. And we drive ourselves mad doing that. And we got to back up and start with question number one, which is, what do you want? You have to start with question number one. What do you want? And then why do you want it? And then how do you get it? More and more people don't understand, well, what do you want? What do you want? Well, I want to make money. No, that's cool. Do you want to make money or do you want to make a profit, right? Well, I want to make a profit, of course. Well, how much? How much is enough? I don't know. No, how much? What do you want? What do you want? You got to define what you want. Why? Because then you'll know when you get there. How much is enough? Because we keep on going for more and more and more and more and more. But define what you want. And then and then why do you want it? Well, because I want what? Well, what do you want? What do you want? Set your parameters. What do you want? You got to define that goal. And just saying I want more is not enough, because you'll never get more. You'll never achieve more. You'll never do more. You'll never get there. But why do you want it? Understand, make sure your why is, number one, big enough, but also it's centered in what your personal values are. Because if your why is not what you want, you're never going to find happiness, you're never going to find joy, and you're always going to be messed up. And if you as the business leader are messed up, your entire organization and your employees are going to be messed up, because your how is going to continue in that hamster wheel. Start with the what. That's your strategy, that's your strategic plan, that's your what. Figure out the what, figure out the why. The how will come later, but then get everybody on the team. Everyone on the team has to figure out the what, and they have to be aligned to the how. But then it comes in, and the business leaders also fall into the trap that they have to solve all the problems, and they don't. The answer lies in the team. The answer always lies in the team. Remember that. You don't have to solve the problem yourself. The answer lies in the team. And if it doesn't, get a bigger team. Or a different team. Yeah. But the answer always lies in the team.
It's an interesting question that you ask, and something comes to mind for me from a strategy perspective. And often we're so busy working in the business, we don't take the time to work on the business, and it gets disproportionately out of scale. In fact, I know as a consultant, when I go in, and each of us as strategic business partners within the organization, we'll go in and find someone who's on that wheel, they're burnt out, they're at risk of leaving, and not just leaving because they're going to go somewhere else, leaving because they got to go check in somewhere, right? Because they've burnt themselves out. And sadly, as I engage with those individuals, and we find out that they're 99 or 100% of their time is in the business, meaning the day-to-day tactical, just get it done, that just continues to involve. And so when we're engaging them, I say, well, if you were to work on the business, they're like, I don't have time to work on the business. I'm too busy working in the business. And here's the heartbreaking truth. In that moment and in that time, yes, we need to kind of identify what we can trade off, but often to start to work on the business, we get caught working even more. And they're like, you mean I've got to work more to work on? But imagine over the next 3, 6, and 9 months, if you can, as a percent, do 1% on the business, then 2% on the business, and then 3%, and then get that up to 10, and then to 20, and then get that in that proactive space. But too often we get so busy in the business, so we've got our business strategy, but we've got our human resources strategy to deliver on the business strategy. And just thoughts on how can we help individuals who are so far in the business they've lost sight of and connection with working on the business.
Yeah, I just make a comment. One of the things that, I think it's a tough question. One of the things that we've struggled with is, and started to talk about, especially during COVID, was let's rethink what we're doing and why we're doing it, which gets to kind of what Wade's talking about, and through this challenge out to all teams, question everything you're doing. Question the way you're doing it. Why are you doing it? Who is it benefiting? And actually go through the exercise in your team meetings. Nothing is sacred. Throw it all out on the table. And our teams have started doing it. and coming up with these lists of things that we don't even know why we do this anymore. And coming up with that list and sharing it up the food chain. And we've started actually started stopping doing things and getting rid of some processes and automating some processes and gaining efficiencies, and we're nowhere near where we need to be. And one of the things that came up in that process is, you know, my boss sends me emails at 10 at night or 2 in the morning or whatever the time might be, and then I feel like I have to respond to it because my phone's sitting right next to my desk, and that's right next to my my bedroom, and I can hear it go off. And so we've challenged our leaders to stop doing that. Stop sending messages in the middle of the night or late or early in the morning because your employees are feeling like they have to be on 24/7. Stop doing that. We're probably nowhere near where we need to be in that space, but we're at least starting the conversation of why we're doing things and do we need to do it anymore? Can we do it more efficiently and better? Can we automate it? And let's rethink how we're leading so that we're setting the right example for our employees going forward. Because as we find the new generations that are coming into our workforce, they don't want to work 24/7. They're on their phones a lot, but they don't want to necessarily work the whole time. So we need to respond to what the generations that are coming into our workforce want, and they don't want to be on for the work 24/7. So we have to rethink what we're doing. So we're in the process, we're just not very good at it yet.
And I want to, another side of what you just said, that coin, is I think we have to rethink the standard of hours.
Yes.
What works for me as an employer when I've got 2 little ones at home is sometimes it is that quiet moment at, I don't do it at 2 in the morning, but let's say
Yeah.
I'm doing it at 5:30. I think the culture is to say that you set your own boundary of what works for you. As long as you're deliverable and meet your deadlines, don't respond when mine comes in. Respond when it's your time that you're on. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's, because it's the thing, we're learning now as people are working from home or they're in the office, we have to shift up what the standard hours are to get the best out of each other for when it works for us, because that's just the new reality.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great, that's an excellent point. And when all of our employees were working from home, and we would be on these, you know, calls, Teams calls, and you'd see the dog and the kids running around, and I gotta go because Stevie got kicked off Zoom, and I gotta get him hooked up again, so I'll be back. And it was just and at first, when people went home, we said, blur your background, be professional, you know, all these things, and then we're like, oh, forget it. That's not gonna work. Never mind. Let's see the kids, dogs, everybody, let's all work together. So it was a whole new reality because we're a very conservative, traditional, you know, financial services organization serving agriculture. And so we had all these standards and things that we wanted to do, and those just completely went out the window. So, and we also told our employees, work when you need to work. If you have kids at home that you're trying to school, educate, you know, parents, whatever you have that you're dealing with in this environment right now, do it. Communicate. And so what I thought about when you were talking is, it's really about communication. I'm not gonna be online from 10 to 2, not happening, because I have to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm gonna be sending emails at 10 at night or 5 in the morning, because that's when I can focus. Okay, cool. Just communicate what you need, what you're gonna do, and we can make it work. And we started that when we were all at home. Now that we're back, maybe not so much. So I do think that is something we struggle with, certainly, and something that we're gonna have to continue to work on as people and as organizations, to get what we need, to do what's needed for the organization, and also, you know, it's all about us and our companies together. How are we gonna work together to make it work and meet our goals and mission of the organization? So I love what you brought up. That's so true.
And thank you for that. And just in lieu of time, or in view of time, would just like to invite first Stacy and then Wade and then Alice. We've got maybe a minute and a half each, plus or minus, to kind of get a final thought or final statement. And if we go back to where we started, we talked about sustaining the most critical supply chain, America's workforce. How do we sustain that? And just a couple of quick facts. This morning I was reading, individuals certainly are offering more money to recruit folks. Our friends who are recruiting are doing 2 to 3 minute videos and sending unsolicited to people via LinkedIn. It's a recruiting video. They're sending, after reviewing their profile, they're doing that. They're adding benefits. There's the expectation of a 24-hour turn time. If someone applies for a job, within 24 hours, they've heard from a recruiter or someone on your team, right? We're doing that. We're seeing that in a 2021 Robert Half survey that just came out, 48% are increasing their signing bonuses, 43% are offering more time off, and 40% are providing better or enhanced job titles. And certainly that isn't the end all be all, but just a couple of quick facts as we wrap up here. But if we could start with Stacy and then Wade and then conclude with Alice, just a minute and a half or so of a wrap up of your poignant thoughts of we're in a struggle, we're in a war for talent.
Yeah.
What do we do?
We're in a war, but we're all in this war together, right? It doesn't matter if you're in the healthcare sector or the manufacturing sector or in academia or in construction or in retail, and the list goes on and on and on. It's a national shortage. And so what we need to do is really band together and not poach. I mean, but really look at how do we raise up talent within our nation and to work on this, to find solutions together. We need us all on the same page because we all have the same struggle, and building relationships and having conversations like this is exactly what we need to do as we're responding to this challenge over the course of the next decade or two.
About 12 years ago, a guy by the name of Dan Pink came out with his book called Drive. And, just then we were just figuring out this whole millennial thing. Millennials blamed for everything, right? Hey, we're in Gen X. We were blamed for everything back then, so we get it. But he shared just simply that, money is everything until it's not. Once people feel that they're fairly compensated, then money really doesn't matter. Then it's about engagement, autonomy, and meaning. Nothing is truer than that today. Money does matter. Money does matter. And then it doesn't. Then it doesn't. And today's contract with employees is all about that. If you can make them feel human, if you engage them, you treat them like people. Today's employment environment is personal. The recruitment is personal. It's about grassroots, connecting with them personally. Everything is personal. The relationship with their managers, personal. Relationship with you as people, personal. When it becomes impersonal, you're going to lose them. That personal relationship will compensate for lack of funds. It will.
I would say rethink, reinvent. Be open to your employees and listen to them. What are they saying? What do they need? What can you do to make their experience better and to keep them in your organization within reason? What can you do to help them develop and grow? And how can you as an individual be part of that journey for that employee? I just think we have to rethink and reinvent. What the world was like before is not the way the world is today, and we're in it for the long run. Everything's different, and we have to be open to that, and we have to do it together as we go forward.
Alice, Wade, and Stacy, thank you so much. At this time, we'd like to invite back up to the stage here Dr. Chip Hunter, Dean of the Carson College of Business at Washington State University. Dean Hunter.
Thanks, Ron. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It was terrific. Lot to think about here. If we try to act on all of it, we'll be back in the fix Lindsay was describing earlier of being overwhelmed. I want to close before I thank the panelists one more time with a couple of more plugs right in this space for the college, just to remind you of some of the things that we do. Again, part of what we do is to try to develop insights that are actionable for business leaders. And annually, a Business in the Northwest survey is something that we do with various focus depending on the issues of the time. So there's been a lot of focus over the last couple of years on the workplace and the pandemic. And in the last couple of surveys, we've also paid some special attention to our youngest members of the workforce, those that are, I guess we call them Gen Z now, Generation Z. If you're interested in what we found, I encourage you to take a spin through our website. We've got some really interesting findings there about what our youngest employees might be looking for. And without giving the whole story away, I'll tease a couple of things. One is that our youngest employees, and this echoes some of what we heard from the panel, our youngest employees and folks joining the workforce are really looking to know what an organization stands for and what it's about if they're going to make a commitment to the organization. This is what they're telling us. And now that they have these choices, this is something that we'd encourage employers to be more direct about, to really think through and have responses and communication prepared if you're looking to attract and then hang on to the youngest members of the workforce. A lot more on the website with respect to business in the Northwest. A couple of other exciting things to let you know about. For those of you in the accounting profession, the Carson College has recently, just over the last few months, been the recipient of two really fantastic gifts that will enable us to provide more career support for our accounting students, a $3.5 million and then a $1.5 million endowment in turn, so we can support the work of our career services advisor and more career readiness for our accounting students. Very excited about how that's going to help prepare our accounting students to be ready to take on this world of work that we're looking at. And we're looking forward to making that a kind of a model for how we can continue to keep our students career ready. And I'll close where I started with that, which is with our outstanding programs. We've talked a lot about being able to meet people where we are, and I'm really proud of our online programs. We talked about asynchronous programs, and Wade, I know you even teach in those, and that we meet working professionals throughout the Northwest and in fact throughout the world with those online programs, and they don't have to pick up and move or quit their jobs, but they can continue to make progress, whether it's earning a bachelor's degree in business or an MBA or an executive MBA. Very proud of those programs. And of course, where I think many people have their heart with Washington State, which was with our residential undergraduate program in Pullman and our undergraduate programs at our other campuses. And we just continue to make progress with those programs. We've introduced a new sales program with a center and a certificate in Pullman, building on one in Vancouver. We've also got a new student consulting program in Pullman, again, building on our innovative friends in Vancouver, and a lot more ways to reach the community. All of what we're doing is in the spirit of making sure that our Carson College students are earning degrees that are valued and valuable to those students. And we hope that we'll be part of the solution to the challenges that our employer community in the Pacific Northwest is facing. With that, I really want to thank our panelists. Before I explicitly thank you, I want to again thank Travelers, thank Cougs First. A little plug for Cougs First. Some of you, probably most of you know, but the show's today, right? We're finally back with Cougs First here in Spokane. And at 3 o'clock, we get to hear from President Schultz, followed by the show here in the convention center. And then in May, the Cougs First will take the show. From here, we say take it on the road back to Bellevue this year, right, Tony? Bellevue in the middle of May. So thank you, Travelers. Thank you, Cougs First, and thanks to our Crimson sponsor, Alaska Airlines. But especially, I want to thank Alice, Wade, and Stacy, and I've got a thank you for you. So don't go anywhere. For everybody, thanks for coming out this morning, and go Cougs.
Fantastic. Thank you.